So I'm really thrilled to welcome Myriam to this conversation today. Myriam recently attended Performance Pause, which is our 2-day retreat for senior leaders and business execs, and we run it in partnership with Planet K2, so it's a Pause Global and Planet K2 retreat. And Myriam's going to talk to us a little bit about her experiences, why she came and what happened, and what she discovered along the way. So thank you so much for joining this conversation today, Myriam. I'm actually really looking forward to talking through the whole journey with you, because we've experienced it piece by piece, but actually now a chance to review it in the round will be fantastic. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what made you choose to come on this retreat in the first instance?
Yeah. Hi, Danielle, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. So, as you know, I was in a real transitional period of my career when you and I first spoke about Performance Pause. And as some of us out there might really believe that things happen or come to you at the right time, it felt that it was absolutely perfect for me to enter the 2-day retreat with you. I was just leaving a business that I had been with for a very, very long time, and I had been an exec in that organization for a good few years. And when you are in an organization for a very long time and that there is an end, it felt a very amazing time for me to be able to take that time with you and the group. So it's interesting because the Performance Pause for me was an interesting title in the sense that I wasn't in that thriving, performing, career ascending time. I was at the total opposite in a way. I was really kind of coming to an end. So I had really, there was some anticipation about what was going to happen for me, because it felt that it might have been different than for other people in the group. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because it was more the pause angle that you were looking for at that point in the transition. I often think that when we have these big shifts in our life, whether that's in our career or in our personal life, it's almost like we have to take a breath and we need a moment to decompress and understand what just happened, make sense of that before we move on. But so often we're literally shunted almost from one thing to the other, and it's like we don't come up for air and have that making sense time. So as you said, it was perfect timing for you, wasn't it, just to decompress and take a step back, and then do it with other people who were in industry and business leaders, so that you were in that kind of familiar group, but you were all in different places.
And in an environment that I enjoy being with such minds and your peer in a certain way, even if you are from very different backgrounds and very different environments and industries. There is a common ground in being at that sort of level of corporate life.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were interested to see how you would fit into that group, given that you were in this particular transition. So tell me what happened. What was your experience?
Well, it's interesting, because just to go back to what you were saying a second ago with regards to me being interested by the pause aspect of the title of your retreat, I wasn't sure that I was. It's that word that we all fear as leaders. It's what do you mean stopping? And in a way, because I was at that natural pause for myself, there was a sense of anticipation about being with people who are thriving and who are in their career. So you're absolutely right. It was a really interesting environment to be in the sense that it's familiar, but also I was on the other side. So there was an interesting positioning for me to take. And I think what was incredible about that specific aspect of you running the retreat is that you were mindful of that, and you really encouraged me to show up as myself, as where I was at that time in my life and in my career, without and you did it beautifully, I have to say, because it can be nerve-wracking to be you identify yourself by your job for a lot of the time, and so you encouraged me to show up as who I was at that time in my life, and that was really beneficial for me because it allowed me to be that person on the other side of that big job title and that credential. And the group was, and as you know, I really took a lot out of being with that group of people, and you really managed that beautifully again with the different of personalities, different stages that everyone is. You really conduct the group in a really amazing way because you have a sense of where everybody is. So you allow the space for everyone to be who they are at the time as they come to the retreat. So that was really, really beautiful to experience and to see you do.
Thank you for saying that, Myriam. It's so important to me that in a group environment, we keep the numbers small very specifically so that we can have that personal experience. But for me, it's really important that everybody has an individual experience within a group.
And it really was. It really was.
And that's something that through all of the pause retreats, we're really proud of doing. So yeah, I'm glad you felt that. So tell me any highlights or anything that stood out for you from your experience.
I think I'm very curious as an individual about all the wonderful aspects of personal development, personal growth, and performance, and I have a little spiritual side in me. So I really was really thirsty to learn and to absorb everything that you put in front of us. And I think once again, what you do very, very well is that you inject the quirkiness of what spirituality can be for someone who is in the boardroom and who doesn't necessarily know that it's something that would benefit them in their lives, but also in an environment where, as much as the world is opening up to elevating leaders in a much more EQ rather than IQ, it still is an environment that is not well known and not well practiced in the boardrooms. So that was a real highlight for me. Is the program was really catered around the traditional performance language, which obviously everyone is really eager to get into because that's what we know. But also you really opened us up to all sorts of other tools and exercises that really were beneficial to add into our lives. I mean, I'm an avid and keen meditation practitioner, so I meditate regularly, and that was really lovely to be able to inject some of that into the 2 days. The tea ceremony was just beautiful, and it was really wonderful also to have those different types of people who were not used to having those sorts of experiences, who were really welcoming. And so again, you really bring the beautiful balance between the holistic and the more traditional type of exercises. And the rhythm around the 2 days was, I thought, incredibly well designed and delivered, in the sense that it was packed. So you don't go with the idea that it's a pause, so it's going to be extremely slow and we're
holiday.
Precisely. So it was packed, but it didn't feel packed, and so it was really, and the environment. You run those retreats in beautiful places, and that particular environment was very nourishing. You know, Danielle, it was. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was thinking, if there was a word, there is that nourishment, and you put a lot of care in the traditional sense of nourishing. So you have a really wonderful team of people who are there to feed us absolute goodness, and I know that's something that you really put a lot of attention to, and it's very much felt, and I think we all wanted to get her number at the end,
have the recipe
go home with us to our kitchen. But it's also that real nourishment of the soul and of your self-care, I guess. So there's a lot of highlights. Highlights don't mean 100 words, but they do in my book when I come to describing what you've put up for us.
Yeah, the land is so important for an experience like this. You know, we're very keen that we support leaders outside of the boardroom so that they can go back into the boardroom with a kind of different, fresh approach and a new perspective. And for me to do that, you know, I really enjoy taking people out onto the land and into nature and allowing that disconnection actually from technology and all of the input, so that you have more space to kind of think and breathe and relax. And
what's wonderful is that people, that group as a whole, didn't resist that at all. People really embraced that from the outset, and I guess we all know what we're entering to a certain degree, but really we don't. And I think you've created a recipe for that, because by default, as soon as you get there, you can breathe, and really the pace changes from the moment we get to see you and to be in that environment. So
yeah, absolutely. My sense is that most people, and certainly most busy business leaders, are really ready to take a breath. They just don't always realise that they're ready to do that. So creating a specific space and a specific time in the diary that says, this is what you are going to do. You are now going to, you know, step back, slow down, give yourself some space for contemplation. It's almost as though, you know, people can just sink into it. But would they naturally do that for themselves? They might think about, oh, that's a good thing to put in my diary for myself. But actually making that happen as a busy business leader for yourself, I think, is still, you know, you need to be very disciplined to do that.
Well, I mean, Danielle, that's my biggest take from the 2 days with you, and that's obviously we left the retreat and we entered a totally different world.
Yeah.
But and so in a way, a world that has been a lot more conducive for some of us. I'm mindful that we have not experienced COVID in the same way, but for me, I'm very, very clear that whatever happens next into my career, it is a time where I will be consciously, mindfully, and do it with absolute conviction that it is necessary for us as leaders to perform at the best of our ability. We need that time for ourselves, and I think we're all very different in our ability to do self-care, and I think organizations are probably changing too in the way they approach performance. I would like to think that that's definitely something that is evolving, but your retreat has really cemented for me the notion that it is needed. It's no longer a nice to have or come on, let's do it. It's needed, and for me it's been elevated to very, very to the same level as other aspects of my diary that would be things that I would never miss. So it's really enabled me. That's probably the amongst many, but that's the biggest takeout, is that all of a sudden it has allowed me to integrate that as a principle for myself, and to actually be able to trickle that down in the organization, and to be able to really take that voice and look at how we care for our people within organizations, and allow them to do that too, for themselves. So that was really an incredible gift, really.
That's very powerful, Myriam, to see the necessity of it as any other business rhythm, as any other kind of regular process or practice you would have as a business leader, that pause is equally as important as your, you know, your quarterly reviews and so on. So yeah, I think that's a really powerful takeaway. Just as we finish the conversation, why do you think pausing is so necessary? You sounded so passionate about it then.
Yes, and I think we would all have very different beliefs around it. Life has taken me to places where, unbeknown to me at the time, I was forced to pause, and life took me to experiences where I was made to pause. And in a way, the end of my last career chapter was one of those. And I think we have the ability with those principles to choose how that happens for ourselves, and to be smarter than sometimes not being conscious and being forced to end up doing it because you're neglecting it. So I think what I feel excited about is that I feel that it is a tool that will no longer be imposed upon me. It will be something that I choose for myself, and I think that's all of a sudden there is a little bit more control around it. It's comfortable.
That's fantastic. And we talk about how do you press pause before life does it for you. So you've really summed that up fantastically well. If you had one sort of final word for a leader who was considering this retreat, what would you say to somebody who was thinking about it?
Well, don't think too much about it, actually. It's you will never know what is waiting for you to do these sort of things, because that program that you've beautifully curated is slightly unconventional. And so that's the beauty of it, is that we are you're not going into another meeting room somewhere for 2 days, a windowless, where you have someone preaching at you, which a lot of those retreats can be, or leadership programs can be. It's an unknown, and it's full of gifts that you and only you will benefit from, because we all take very different things. I imagine, and I'm keen to hear what the rest of the group is giving you in terms of feedback. But I think don't think too much about it, because whatever happens, it's 2 days, and in those 2 days you will uncover things that you had no idea were needed to be uncovered. And also, it's just super nice. It's super fun. It's a lovely bunch of people, a great environment, good food. What else is there to ask for? So don't think too much about it. Just do it, because it will be amazing 2 days, really.
Great. Thank you so much, Myriam. I would love to carry on talking to you about all of these experiences. So lovely to see you, and thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to pausing with you again soon.
Absolutely, I shall be back. Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks, Myriam.